Hello, everyone. I'm Juan Carlos. I am the Interim Executive Director for the New Haven Pride Center, and I want to welcome you all to Spilling the Tea with NHPC. This is the New Haven Pride Center's official podcast, which we are launching today, in which we'll be chatting on a series of topics. Today, we have some very cool topics to talk about. But before we get started, I want to introduce you or have our amazing staff introduce themselves in any order that you feel fit.
Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Bocadoro. My pronouns are she, they, and I am the communications coordinator at the New Haven Pride Center. You've probably seen me on Instagram. Okay, bye.
Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa Marie, pronouns she, her, hers. I'm the development coordinator, so anything related to money, I'm there.
Hey y'all, I'm Timo. I use they, she pronouns, and I am the youth services coordinator.
And my name is Benny. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the support services coordinator here at the Pride Center.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. So today, as you may have heard, we are doing our end of the year June fundraiser. We have the link on your screen. So please donate and help us reach our 3K goal. I believe we are. Do you want to give us an update on what we are, Alyssa Marie?
We are at $1,110, which still places us at a third of the way there. So yes, please make sure to donate. Make sure to tell your friend and tell your neighbors and your cousins and everyone else in between.
And it's really easy to donate. All you have to do is enter the bit.ly link below is bit.ly/donate. And NHPC has to be in capitals in order for you to get to the donation portal. Once you get there, you can just place your donations and help us reach that $3,000 goal. And the reason why we're doing this is because today is a very special day. It's the 54th anniversary of Stonewall. So part of what we want to do here at the New Haven Pride Center is we want to take some time to reflect on that. I think it's very fitting that we're launching this video podcast conversation series around this really important day. And I want to take some time to have us reflect on what that means to us. So maybe we'll start with Timo. What is, for you, what is the 54th anniversary of Stonewall feel like? What are some of the things that come to your mind when you hear that?
Thanks for letting me go first. I don't know. For me, it carries mixed feelings and emotions, right? Because I'm a human being that experiences multiple intersectionalities, right? And so when I think about, okay, we're only 54 years in, right? And then at the same time, it's like, yay, we're 54 years in, right? That's a half a century. We're almost 100 years in, and thinking about like movements and how they impact future generations and how that impacts the decisions, how I live, how I walk this earth today. But it also reminds me that we're only 54 years in, right? Like being in this particular position, especially working with a lot of young queer folks, we still have a long way to go. And I think that's been kind of coming up a lot, especially around the center, but also in community, around this nation, looking at the laws that are being passed, like in obvious places like in Florida, Texas, the Midwest, but even looking closer to home. Here in Connecticut, like we are not 100% safe here either. We still have people up in Hartford that are trying to push legislation that writes us out of history, right? So to me, this is a remembrance of a call to action, right? Like we still have a long way to go. We still have a lot to be joyous about, right? And like queer joy is awesome, but like queer power, I feel like I like queer power too. That's awesome. And movement building, right? And so I take what we've learned from Stonewall and try and figure out how do we not reimagine or reinvent the wheel, but like grow what's already been put by our mothers, right? Before us, for us to be able to step on, so that thinking about my daughter, right, and other people's kids, so that our ceiling is their floor. And I think that that's really what they wanted for us too. They wanted their ceiling to be our floor.
Yeah. Speaking, I want to bring in someone who has been helping our case management program grow, right? Speaking of people who are making things grow to exceptional heights, I want to bring in Benny. Benny, what does it feel like when you hear that Stonewall was 54 years ago?
Literally, to echo Timo, it's exactly that. Like, you feel anxiety, but you also feel excitement. For me, Pride Month, because I'm proud all year, obviously, hair flip there, but during Pride Month specifically, these dialogues start to happen a lot more often, especially with people who don't like to have these dialogues from July to May. So it's been kind of an instrumental part of specific to case management, me expanding a lot of the programming we have. I'm like, if this is the one time of the year people are going to hyper focus in on us and our history, then I'm going to take advantage of that too. So while it's been happening, we've been able to ensure that a lot of the programming that exists within our case management program here at the center is thriving at its max capacity. And though we're not at the max capacity yet, I feel so much more confident now because we've gotten ears and eyes open officially from a lot of people who are really key stakeholders in our community. So personally, it's just, I've always found a sense of comfort in knowing that though we are only half a century in, like Timo said, it's been done before, right? People have been resilient before, people have overcome things before. So while we face adversity and a lot of scary situations right now, I feel so much more comfortable facing them because I know my family, per se, right, has done this in the past before. And if they overcame it, we sure as hell will too. So it's been kind of my sense of comfort as a person, but also my sense of comfort as a provider of services. So I'm just really excited and thankful to be here in this position and with all of these amazing people and celebrating that we're still fighting the good fight, but we're ahead as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really important. And I think that's something like our foremothers, like to use Timo's wording, was really understood the combination of like movement work and direct access to services. So I'm wondering if Alyssa Marie, if you can like reflect also on that a little bit, on how like it's important for us to combine those two worlds and how sort of it reflects on the movement that started 54 years ago.
Yeah, I think what we sort of see from the very beginning is this huge sense of community and mutual aid within our gay rights movement, right? So we've seen it when Marsha and Sylvia launched the STARS program, where they took over a building, and in that building were providing housing and food and clothing and taking care of LGBTQ young people in New York City that were looking for that type of secure housing and like safety net. And, like now we are in a place where nonprofits are big and are a thing, and we're able to really, for lack of a better term, professionalize how we're providing these services to our community, but we're also able to tap into a larger sort of source of resources that our community can access. So, I think for us as one of the only 2 LGBTQ centers in the state, it is important for us to know how to manage both the advocacy part of our work and know how to be at the front lines when anti-trans legislation or lawsuits are arising in our state, and also to know how to take care of the direct needs that our people are facing in this moment, because it's not just the organizing and taking care of legislation, but it's also meeting the people's needs where they are right now, so they can also advocate for themselves without having to worry about how I'm gonna put food on the table or what am I gonna wear, or so on and so forth.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Laura, I'm wondering, like, when you hear that, it was 54 years ago that Stonewall happened, how does that feel for you, and what can you reflect on that?
So one thing I actually think about is like my parents, and how my parents are older than how many years ago Stonewall happened. Like my dad's in his 60s and my mom's almost in her 60s. And that's one thing, like when my parents were alive, this stuff was still happening. That's where like my brain immediately goes to. And it's like, it sounds like it's so long ago, when in reality it's not, right? It's 54 years ago. Like, are the folks who were at Stonewall, a lot of them are alive today. We don't think about that aspect of it. They're not all gone, they're still here. And I think it's great that we have made leaps and bounds since Stonewall. It's great to think that we have done so much within the last 54 years. But then I reflect on what's currently the environment we're in right now. And kind of like similar to what Alyssa Marie said, we have to be advocates. We have to support our community. And as I always say, we're public servants to our community. And 54 years ago, we were making the Black and brown women of our communities be the people to put their lives on the line when other folks were not stepping up to support them. And that's what we all need. That's what us as a community center, we do. We are the ladder that help folks, step up on. And then, again, like 54 years ago, that's, I'm 26, so that's kind of that's close to twice my age. But I think about it and I'm like, wow, like I was only born 20 years after this, for the most part. You know what I mean? Like it blows my mind that people are only now kind of coming out of the word woodworks and understanding like the amount of work that, again, we put on the backs of Black and brown women back in the 1960s had to happen, and how much of it is not talked about right now, right? Like we talked about the STARS organization. I bet I could ask 10 people right now if they knew what that was, and they probably would say no, but they do know who Marsha P. Johnson is. And like, if you think about it today, if the AIDS crisis and whatnot hadn't happened, Marsha P. Johnson might still be here, right? Like, again, because it was only 54 years ago. So that's kind of my thought into it.
Yeah, for me, it's like crazy to think about that it was 54 years ago, because like everyone has said, it feels so far yet so close, but it also feels like we're doing this yo-yoing effect of like moving forward but also moving backwards, right? Like, I think about a couple of years ago, sort of like there was this like massive movement forward that was happening, from this ripple in time and in moment that was Stonewall. Those ripples of that moment we're still feeling today, and it sort of propelled us very quickly forward, right? Because in 54 years there has been a lot of progress, and I think it's important for us to also celebrate, right? There's a reason why we're able to sit on the screen and to use our colleagues' words a lot. Like, we all get paid to be LGBTQ professional. We get paid to be professionally gay, right? Which is amazing to experience, but it also feels like it's a very scary time. And that's what I want us to kind of like start talking about now. It's like, in the last 2 years, we've seen an increment of LGBTQ legislation and lawsuits happening that are coming in every state, right? I think there is only like 4 states in the entire United States that didn't introduce LGBTQ policy, and some of that wasn't even. So we weren't one of those states, right? Like, we think of Connecticut as this like safe harbor state, but like we had anti-trans legislation happen here. We had drag queen legislation, all these different things. So I want to talk about a little bit about that. And I want to start with Benny. And sorry that I'm going to sort of tokenize you a little bit, but you are someone who is a performing artist. So when you hear some of this anti-drag legislation, how does that make you feel?
I'm a drag. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I am a drag performer in Connecticut, specifically and around Connecticut. When a lot of these things were initially introduced or talk started to happen around legislation being passed specifically around drag queens, because let's be clear about the fact that they keep trying to hide the fact that it's mainly about attacking transgender individuals, and they're kind of just using the drag performers as a scapegoat. But I write out for my team, so I'm like, if I got to go down with my sisters and my brothers, it is what it is. But it's scary, specific to being a drag performer, as these talks about this legislation started to happen. I remember being nervous going to shows or even walking to my car, right? Because who's to say my neighbor who used to be cool with me just walking out to my car in a wig is going to be cool with it now, because now the whole world's against it. So it is scary, but just like I said in the last about the last question, I really nothing's about to stop my stride. If I'm getting snatched, somebody's gonna snatch back. That's kind of been my approach to it. I have no choice but to be resilient and kind of just navigate the world and hope for the best. I don't know what's gonna happen to me half the time. It is a very nerve-wracking thing because a lot of us who do drag specifically have always been artistic and wanted a platform to be expressive. And so drag gives us that outlet. It's given us an outlet to express things to others and inspire other people to be artistic and to be expressive, including young people, which is another argument that's steadily presented in defense of the legislation being passed. Drag performers are grooming children. Drag performers are negatively influencing and impacting children, which in my opinion and factually proven is not the case. There are at least a dozen other environments that I could tell you are negatively impacting children, and nobody's talking about them. So as a drag performer, I am nervous sometimes. I can't say I'm not, but I would never in my wildest dreams imagine this to be happening right now. But I'm also not going to let anybody push me in a corner without pushing back. So it's just a pleasure to be in a space like the New Haven Pride Center that empowers me as a drag performer, because I am Benny while I'm here, but if anybody knows me, my attitude is very much Crystal 24/7. So I am excited that we're all pretty proactive about it. It could be easy for them to scare us into being quiet, and that's just not happening. A lot of folks, including allies, have been vocal about where they stand and how they stand with us. So I'm just hoping that we remain firm in that resilience and that this just becomes a thing of the past, because literally the community in itself, especially our transgender brothers and sisters and non-binary individuals, they already go through enough on their journeys. I'm like, let's not add additional hurdles to the journey of these people. It's just not right. So, but yeah, I'm going with the flow.
Right. Yeah, so true. And I want to take a moment, because you mentioned allies, so I want to take a moment. There in the chat, Brian Donahue is one of the organizers for Not Just Us, and they do they do rallies throughout the state, and they've been doing rallies. They recently did one in New Haven, and they make sure that they bring people from across the state. From Brian's message, he's saying that they have 670 members from across the state. And they advocate on behalf of individuals of color, LGBTQIA, foster and adoptive, folks with disability, diverse faiths, indigenous, and lower income. And I think that is also I want to kind of continue the conversation going about the anti-trans bills and the anti-LGBTQ legislation. That's one of the things that sometimes we miss, how intersectional and how it targets individuals that are often marginalized. So I'm wondering if Timo or Alyssa want to talk about some of that as well and reflect on that.
Yeah, I think there is I think in order to have an effective sort of move for change in the era that we're living in now in 2023, it requires us to build a cross-cultural, cross-racial, cross-class movement that goes beyond, what's like directly impacting us, right? So it means that, like, for myself as a Afro um, Afro Boricua trans woman, I'm not just showing up for the identities I represent that are heavily impacted, but I'm also showing up for my Muslim brothers and sisters, and I'm also showing up for my indigenous brothers and sisters, right? So it requires us in this age to really show up for each other and truly live into people power and community power in a way that we haven't seen before. The reality is, especially here in Connecticut, there is a movement that is slowly building in the far right, where we just this past couple of days have started to see the Patriot Front start to post posters across Connecticut, right? And so we're slowly starting to see like the rise of hate and white supremacy within our state that will, trust and believe, target all of us, whether you are a Black conservative or a Black liberal, whether you are a Hispanic conservative or a Hispanic liberal. Like, we are all going to be targeted in this case, whether you are Muslim or Jewish. It doesn't matter. We have to build strong communal relationships with each other to really stand up against hate within our state, regardless of what side of the aisle we stand on, regardless of what our ideology is. We need to make sure that we are collectively banding together, because today it's the LGBTQ community, tomorrow it could be Muslims, the next day it could be disabled folks. So we really do need to make sure that from the very beginning we're standing strong together and saying hate doesn't have a home here in Connecticut.
Awesome.
I completely agree with Alyssa. The only thing I would add is that something we have to remember is, even within these intersectionalities, they are not a monolith, right?
Mm-hmm.
All LGBTQ people are not the same. And understanding that, because a lot of times people think, oh, well, if you're queer, you support all queer things. Absolutely not. Cisgendered gay men don't always support trans folk. Lesbians do not always support trans folk. Even within our own community, we have oppression in our own community. Don't be a Black trans woman, and even in, like, so all of these intersectionalities, we have to understand that there's still levels. If even in Blackness, if you're a Black woman, your lived experience looks different than if you are a Black man, right? If you are a cisgender queer person versus a trans queer person, or you're able to code switch in public, or you're passable, right? Your lived experience is completely different than someone else's. And so, yes, we need to understand that human beings are not one-dimensional creatures, right? We carry multiple identities, but also within those identities, there are differences. And if we just want to, and what a lot of folks do is they're like, oh, we're going to cover all of the identities, all of the intersectionalities, but not dive deep into them. We need to dive deep. Not everyone with a disability or who's neurally divergent presents the same way. Right. And so as we continue to have these conversations, I think it's important to understand the people who are mostly impacted carry their own universes inside themselves. And we need to spend the time to learn how they operate and how they think, because all of these issues that we're talking about, whether they're queer issues, whether they're Black or brown issues, whether they're neurally divergent issues, whether they're immigrant issues, there are multidimensional issues that have multidimensional solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what works so well, like for opposition, right? They really seek to divide and really exploit those divisions that exist even within our community. We're seeing it in Connecticut right now, everywhere, right? I'm not going to call out the particular groups it's happening right now. You'll have to tune on to the next episode, which, by the way, if you're watching right now, this is Spilling the Tea with NHPC. This is our new Pride Center official right now VlogCast, but it's going to be turning into a podcast. So thanks for tuning in, especially because today we have this incredible end of June fundraiser going in honor of the amazing four mothers whose shoulders we stand on, Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson and the STARS movement. So if you want to donate, before we continue the conversation, I want to take a moment to say that if you want to donate, please donate to bit.ly/donate NHPC, and the NHPC has to be all capitals so you can get to our donation portal. So right now we have been reflecting on, all this anti-LGBTQ, anti-trans, anti-drag queen legislation and this uprising that is happening across the country, with only 4 states in the United States who were the only 4 states who did not introduce anti-LGBTQ legislation. And plot twist, Connecticut was definitely not one of them. Laura, you have done a series of TikToks and social media videos. Laura is our communications coordinator. So if you follow us on Instagram or TikTok, you've seen Laura doing TikToks, and to our not necessarily dismay, but sort of like grudgingly participation, me and Benny are the ones who will often get dragged to do TikToks with her. But I'm wondering if you can chat a little bit about about what we'll be talking about, like some of the things that you have shared on social media or even read in the comments and things like that.
Yeah, so some cool stuff that I've posted about queerness on the social medias. There's some fun facts. Do I have to talk about anything specific? I don't know if you asked me anything specific. Okay, I wanted to make sure you didn't ask me. So one fun thing that you can find, there is a post about it on our Instagram. There's something called the Kalos Society. They were the first LGBTQ plus liberation group in Connecticut. Their founders are still alive and live in Connecticut today. So you can find some info about that on our Instagram. On our TikTok, you can find some info also about how the Marriage Equality Act came into place and kind of some of the history behind that, as well as a fun little kind of fact about Connecticut. Mae West produced a play years ago, early 1900s, called The Art of Drag, a homosexual something play. I forgot the rest of it, my bad. But long story short, it was banned from Broadway because of it being too obscene. And it actually debuted in Bridgeport, Connecticut at the Poly Theater. So you can that's on our TikTok, so you can hear some cool stuff about that. But yeah, check our social media. We always have especially some cute little fun facts about queer history here in Connecticut. I'm obsessed with it. I hope you are too. But yeah, so, and if you all have any of your own personal stories you'd like to share on our social media, you are more than welcome to email me, call me. Love to sit down with some of our community members and talk about some forgotten or hidden history in Connecticut. Oh, you can also read about some not so fun stuff, but like interesting at the same time. You can read about the experience of queer folks within Nazi Germany as well during the Holocaust. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of fun stuff on there. And we're silly goofy on TikTok, so you should definitely follow us.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, and I think it's interesting hearing Laura talk about sort of all this movement work that happened in Connecticut. And I think Mackenzie, who is watching along and commenting, said it beautifully. That's in Connecticut we have fallen into all of that progress led to a place of complacency, and we sort of and I say it all the time, and I think when I say it, everybody's gonna roll their eyes, but it's we fell asleep at the wheel and we just sort of put the car in cruise control and didn't realize that we were gonna hit a couple of speed bumps and possibly a U-turn, right? Because movement work is not just a straight line. Opposition arises and all of those things. So it's important for us to get back into that spirit, especially in Connecticut, because things can get very scary in Connecticut. We have a lot of hidden homophobia, a lot of hidden transphobia, and that's coming from both sides of the aisle. So don't think that it's only coming from one side or the other. And it's important for folks. We need more LGBTQ people running for local office. Again, to kind of share what Mackenzie said earlier, we need more folks running for office that at local levels. We need more LGBTQ folks running at state levels. And if you're interested in running, like there's a lot of resources that are around Connecticut that you can get connected to that will help you learn and know what it's all about. This episode is going to be a little bit shorter than usual. Next time we're going to shoot to be an hour, but I want to just before I close have a moment if anybody else wants to share anything else. I want to share that we have a clothing swap coming on Friday, starting at 1, right, Laura, or noon? 1. Noon.
12.
Okay. So clothing swap next Friday starting at 12. We have clothing, we have shoes, we have all sorts of things that you can come in. Followed closely by a book swap at Possible Futures. There's going to be some food, some books, community. We're going to have a good time. We're going to love up on each other. We're going to share books, possibly some of those books that are getting banned all over the place. And we're just going to have a good time in community. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. Thank you to everyone that was watching and commenting. We love you very much. And remember to donate. Help us reach our goal. We're so close. Again, that website is bit.ly/donate NHPC, and NHPC has to be all caps. Thank you to my amazing staff for being here with me, and thanks for letting me drag all of you to do this with me. And as always, for all the hard work that you do here at the center.
You can donate on our website as well. Woohoo!
And happy Pride, everyone. And remember, Pride is not over in June. At the New Haven Pride Center, we celebrate Pride every single day of the year.
And Pride was a riot.
Yeah, let's riot. All right. Have a good night, everyone.